Well, I think one of the things to remember is that the jobs are temporary, but the effects last for decades, centuries, maybe millennia. Remember that in each well you have millions of gallons of toxic fluid that is going to stay there if you're lucky, or it's going to migrate somewhere where you don't want it. The jobs will have been long gone, and yet you're left with the toxic contaminants. Pretty much as I thought it would be, where you had people giving a pretty clear, concise view of some of the impacts of HVHF on the environmental and health side, and et cetera. And then you had a couple of people giving the economic side and ignoring the environmental and health side. And putting a lot of hope and faith in the industry and in oversight that hasn't happened anywhere else. And the DEC people I've talked to said there's no way they're going to ever fund it to the level they would need to be able to have the kind of oversight that they would need to have. It is a big investment, and Mary was saying how that would be a much better thing, that you wouldn't have wildcats. But I'm going to point out that if you have no HVHF, you're not going to have wildcatters anyway. They can still do vertical drilling and fracking like they have been for decades here. There's nothing stopping them. In fact, even if they want to go down to the Marcellus or Utica, they're welcome to do that, although it's not going to be economically viable for them. But you certainly, won't have wildcatters. And so it's again, just like how they said, well, vertical compared to horizontal, horizontal's better, it's fewer wells, it's less surface area. You're comparing it to something that's not going to happen. And so it's a false comparison. If you think about this, you have right now around 6,000 wells in Pennsylvania. If Pennsylvania gets fracked to the level that the companies want to do, they would have close to 100,000 wells over the next decade or two. And if you look at how few inspectors they have and how many wells each inspector has to take care of, there's absolutely no way that proper inspections are going on. In fact, Cornell University found that they weren't even, they would find violations, but because they were so busy, they wouldn't even write them up or cite them. And so certainly, New York would take an awful lot of resources, and that would come out of taxpayer money unless New York made the gas and oil companies pay for this. It would take an awful lot of money for New York to have the kind of oversight that they were speculating would happen. That's in the DEC regulations. New York would not have the flowback pits or the drill cutting pits or anything. It would be a closed system, which would be wonderful. But if you look at the problems with HVHF, spills, surface spills from flowback pits aren't the biggest issue at all. There's a lot of other issues that are much bigger. So that would solve some of the problems, but certainly not all of them. Municipalities cannot regulate drilling and fracking. They can ban it, they can have a moratorium, they can do the transportation aspect, but they can't regulate it. So it's not like we have that option. And she believes it'll be overturned, but so far it hasn't been, with 3 different cases, Avon, Dryden, and Middlefield, at 2 different levels in the state. And it's going, it's to the Supremes, and it's unlikely they'll overturn home rule. So I think the 179 municipalities are pretty secure, whether it was a ban or a moratorium. Any ban or moratorium can specify no wastes, no waste treatment, no transportation. You don't have to get the negatives. And the other part about, New York State isn't doing its job, it's importing 95% of the gas that it uses. Well, we have to remember that for all the states, including New York, if HVHF was approved, a lot of that gas is not going to be used in the United States. The energy companies are not talking about energy independence anymore because they know they're going to be exporting a big chunk of it, and that's going to raise prices here.